Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Derp Your Hooves. So, today, we are again in the V-22 Osprey, and we're going to have a little bit of East Coast fun. So, I wanted to say that as much as I would love to use my replay tool today, I don't think it works well with the Osprey. So, we're just going to kind of do this, winging it. So let's hop on in. So here we are inside the Osprey. Nice little cockpit. And there's our nacelles out there. So let's get going. So the Osprey here, let's release our parking brake and roll down the runway a little bit. The Osprey can do what's known as vertical takeoff and landing, or it can do V-stall, which is very short takeoff and landing. So we're going to do a V-stall takeoff and just get rolling. And I gotta say, I love this thing because, it's just an amazing piece of technology. It's like a revolutionary aircraft. And that's it, everybody.
Derp Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee. Continue for south departure.
Wire Tower Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee. Continue for south departure.
So I think I covered this briefly before, but it's not just a helicopter. So what we can do here is, if you pay attention, and I'll just use my mouse real quick as I'm flying to show you. If you pay attention right here, our nacelles are at 60 degrees, and it's actually starting to shake a little bit because of our airspeed. So, again, with the Osprey, watching your airspeed, you can rotate the nacelles forward. So if the number gets higher, if you remember angles, if anyone remembers geometry, 90 degrees is a right angle straight up, and then everything else is in between on an acute side. So 45 degrees is about half a 90. So the nacelles should be at 45 degrees. Now, I have been told by a friend of mine that the nacelles, actually, well, how about this? The aircraft itself is not totally true to life. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. So a lot of stuff in the simulation, not all aircraft, are not exactly true to life in this simulator. Just like they wouldn't be in other sims, even some of the best combat flight sims and stuff that's out there, it's not always true to life. There are some study level aircraft, but this is obviously not a study level aircraft. So if you want to go learn how to fly the Osprey, go join the Navy or the Air Force or the Marines and become an aviator. Become a military aviator. So we're just going to go ahead and roll these nacelles down. We're doing about 139 knots. They're at 5 degrees. Let's bring them down to 0, and the whole thing should jerk just a little bit like that. And now they're at 0.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
So now,
Acquire Tower Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee frequency change.
we should be able to fly more like an aircraft. So, the Osprey can do about 270 knots or so. And the one thing that I've learned with some of the time that I've had flying it is that you want to be a little careful on pretty much what your RPMs are and how much you push these little engines. Because it will overheat and you will lock up the turbines and it will just turn on you. So you are going to be able to go faster than a helicopter. Much faster. But at the same time, you've got to be careful with this thing. So, just a word of warning. I mean, if you guys don't have it, again, I just wanted to say, I'm not being endorsed by anyone. So, you can get it from Orbix. I don't remember how much it costs, but it's definitely a fun little thing to fly. I mean, we can even kind of bring it down low. Let's bring it down real low. Just keeping in mind where we're going. I mean, it's not like we're really going to hit any mountains out here. It's pretty flat. But the closer we get to one of the places we're going, we could plow into a building, and that would be bad. So right about now, you see I was doing about 300 knots. Now, I'm not even sure if the Osprey would actually do that or sustain that in real life. I don't know. And the other thing that I can do is I can adjust my pitch trim, and I can change it to forward-looking infrared, which is really cool. See that? It gives me a layout of the terrain. And I get my speed and everything else in there, so that's pretty cool. And again, someone would say, well, you know, Pony, you didn't say where we're going. Well, we're going to a pretty recognizable place. Are we traveling southeast? We don't really want to go southeast. We want to go northeast. Pony, pony, pony. As you're showboating off in the Osprey, flying at less than 1,000 feet. You're not going where you're supposed to be going. So the autopilot in the Osprey, does it work? Well, I don't really think it works like it should. And to be honest with you, with this video, I'm not really going to test that feature, because I just kind of want to enjoy the flight. So, you know, maybe kind of like when you're flying, like, say, like the 152 or like a biplane, or just know where you're going. And again, to know where you're going, you might say, well, I'm a novice simmer and I'm a novice flight simmer. Well, you know, then I guess I really am going to have to teach you guys. And I got to learn a little bit myself better on just how to navigate with degrees. Because from my understanding, and I mean, I've done it before, but, you know, people were tooling around in little wooden biplanes with compasses. I mean, granted, it was, you know, a while ago, but you don't need all this fancy schmancy autopilot and navigation. You just need to know where you are and where you're going. And I mean, there's more to it than that, like how fast you're going and how long it takes, and then, you know, getting to a certain waypoint and then making a turn at the right degrees to make the next waypoint. And I mean, that's pretty much it. So I guess I spoiled, like, I just summarized it right there. And it's like, it's pretty much just about heading where you need to head to. You know, I mean, it's just that simple. And I am flying kind of low as we're over the wonderful state of New Jersey. Headed in a northeast direction. Did you know there was so much green in New Jersey? There is. And 184 knots is probably pretty good. So this does what, like I said, 270 or something? 275 is like supposedly what it's rated at. But I'm trying to watch my engines because I have this set again to realistic. How's that? I have it set to crash realism and realistic failures, and basically the designers have programmed it so if you push it too hard, it just kind of bites you. And this thing doesn't exactly glide. I mean, you can just kind of look at it and you can tell this thing does not look like something that glides too well. When it loses airspeed, when it loses power, and it loses airspeed. Oh, hey, was that a jug handle? By the way, New Jersey, the state where you can never make a left, well, for the most part. Fun fact about New Jersey, and if you guys are from New Jersey, you know, hey! Well, I'm not ripping on you guys, I'm just saying you can't really make a left in New Jersey. It's very hard to do in a lot of places. Make a left-hand turn. But go drive through New Jersey and you'll find all about that. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just teach you how to drive in a different way. So we're not driving, we're flying. So we can make as many left-hand turns as we want. So that looks like Newark. With a question mark. Because again, I really don't have my navigational aids, so I'm not sure. And I'm really not going to obey any kind of like actual traffic rules today. Like, you know, flying at 1,000 feet minimum over an airport, and we're just gonna have some fun. We're just gonna kind of, you know, toss a lot of the important rules and regulations right out the window and just have a little bit of fun. You know, get some unpucker factor going on here. But you really can't, yeah, well, you really can't hop in an Osprey if you're a civilian, so. Oh, and you just gotta hold on for that pause. Sorry about that, everybody. Pony added a new drive to his system, and he's gonna have to tweak it. Occasionally it causes a stutter in the sim. Oh, and Pony also gets to have the fun time, and he's said it a billion times, but he gets to have the fun experience of reinstalling the sim. Yeah. But I wanted to make a video before I spend 2 days reinstalling and rebuilding the sim. So in case you guys were wondering, hey, while we're in the Osprey, let's talk sim. You know, for those of you who maybe like, well, I've been wondering about this simulator, you know, or whatever. Wondering flying it, knowing what it's like. So I've noticed, yes, the sim has some issues. And I'm just trying not to crash as I'm flying here. So the sim does have some issues. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this as we're flying along in the Osprey. A little bit about computers. Kind of without making it incredibly technical. So it's really best if the sim starts giving you certain errors, or really you start having lots of issues like crashes to desktop, just weird things, but usually a lot of crashes to desktop. Certain features not working in certain aircraft, but they work for everybody else. You might want to seriously think about, when you want to like stay home and find everything else to do that you would do besides flight sim at home, and just kind of babysit the installation. Because it takes forever to install and then update. But believe it or not, and you don't want to have to do it too many times, you don't have to, a clean reinstallation of the sim, which is also why you need to keep your license key handy, will solve a majority of serious sim problems. And also, on top of it, and nobody wants to ever hear this, let alone agree with it. But, alright, so let's throw this out here first. This has nothing to do with, Windows being Windows, because it's gotten better over the years. And I'm not saying, there are better operating systems besides Windows. Now I'm getting real geeky. But, every now and then, Windows has to be reinstalled. And you might say, well, that's a load of garbage, Pony. And I'm going to tell you that it's not. So, sometimes it's your system, and if you start having major issues with all kinds of things, and I know it's not really about, we're not really talking about flying, but it's kind of how it relates to flight simming. Sometimes, and this is a big ouch, and you can also pay other people to do it for you if you don't want to take the time to do it yourself. Sometimes you actually have to rebuild the software in the computer. And then it runs much better. And some people would say do it once a year. And I'd say, again, I hope you have lots of things to do while you reinstall stuff like Windows and merge all your crap over. And so it's not really a fun task, but sometimes just a clean, fresh reinstallation of the operating system and throwing a bunch of stuff else back in there just makes it so much nicer. And, this really isn't a computer channel per se, so, I'm not trying to give out tech support advice, but if you guys are having problems with the sim and, even reinstalling the sim doesn't solve your issue sometimes, and nobody ever wants to hear this, but sometimes it's because the operating system, in all of its wonderful little components and just crap that makes it the operating system, needs to be reinstalled fresh, because no matter how much fixing and tweaking you try and do, it just doesn't help. So let's just kind of end that. And let's enjoy New York City. So, we were in New Jersey, and if partially know your geography, which is something that you'll learn if you want to flight sim. So New Jersey and New York are neighbors. And we basically did this in the Osprey today too, so that we can go have a little look at New York City, because now I had said something here. See, and now I'm getting into flying again, so, but I had said something here about New York City not having helipads. And you'd say, well, but that's not true, Pony. Well, no, okay, so it has helipads. And again, if you go on flightsim.to, you can get some really cool New York helipads that I don't remember being there in earlier versions of the sim, but you can download them and they're there. But as we fly over the city, we should probably, lower our speed just a little bit here. We're going to see. Oh, where's the Statue of Liberty? Let's do that on the way over, because there's so much to see here in the Big Apple. How would you know, Pony? Like cars on the water. Now that is just, that's something that still happens. So remember, when everyone's like, but we're living in the Matrix. Well, then it must be better than this, because, if I saw cars driving across the water, I'd be like, hey, when did that start happening, huh? Okay, so let's lower our speed, drop our nacelles, and be careful here when you're flying the Osprey. It's like this delicate little dance. Oh, see that? It's this delicate little dance of watching your airspeed. And yes, I forgot to let you know that we are in live player mode, so we're open to getting buzzed by F-18s. F-18s seem to be everyone's favorite. Oh, because it's free. Right, that's right. Everybody loves free. So yeah, I brought my nacelles to 67 degrees. So 67 degrees is more than 45 degrees, so we're more than halfway there. But you see that our airspeed is dropping. See, 90. Now it's back up. Oh, no, Pony, you're going to hit the water. Really close. I wasn't watching my altitude. I was just watching my speed. So here's where we go into our hybrid mode. And remember, the Osprey is not a big fan of floating. So don't try and float it like a boat. It doesn't really seem to like that too well. That'll ruin your simming adventure for the day. But here we have, and you're like, well, why are you doing this, Pony? 88, 89, just how about 90? If I put it at 90 degrees, I know, gotta pick that up a little bit. So here's where the Osprey comes in real fun. See, we're at 89 degrees, which is 1 degree off from 90. Doesn't really matter. Not really. We're at 43 knots, so helicopters can hover at 43 knots. Now, I could actually drop the Osprey down there, but we're going to try something a little trickier. Now, as we play the throttle, see, look, now remember our helicopter rules where we use our rudder pedals, and they can actually help us rotate. And let's not hit the Statue of Liberty today. People will get really upset about that, and then, well, so it's going to tell you sync rate, and it's going to tell you basically you're going to fall from the sky, or you're going too fast. But it's usually you're going to fall from the sky. Don't hit the Statue of Liberty, Pony. You're too close. Damn, I was way too close. So that's the Statue of Liberty, everybody. I hope we enjoyed that. Now let's pay attention to our 0 knots as we kind of drift sideways and up. So again, if I nose it down a little bit with my nacelles at 90 degrees, so if I drop my nose, I will slowly start gaining speed. And again, this is where we're really going to get into the Osprey today. So you're going to notice it shakes a little bit. And if you're not careful, you'll overstress it. And if you don't have your gears down, then you're going to have some issues. So remember, watch your altitude, watch your speed. Try not to push it too much. And think about where you want to land or what you're doing. Because now you're in a hybrid. And that's, again, why this thing's really cool. So let's just kind of, maybe bring the nacelles down just a little bit. No, wrong way, pony. See, I figured I'd know this. From 90 to, let's say, 81. That'll give us a little bit more forward momentum. Cut back the throttle. So this does fly quite a bit differently than a helicopter. Let's see, what buildings do we have down here? Oh, it's stuffy nose time. So we should have the Statue of Liberty, and the Chrysler Building should stand out. And then I think it's, what is it? It's like World Trade Center 1. This is the new building. Which should have been back there. I think we passed it. Been a long time since I've been here. And it's been a while since I've been here in the sim. And by the way, everybody, off on the left, you'll see if you look into the river. And I really wish I knew more about what the rivers that surround Long Island and New York City are. But that's not a building floating in the middle of the river. It's not a glitch. It's a ventilation tunnel for the Lincoln Tunnel. What is the Lincoln Tunnel, you might ask? Well, the Lincoln Tunnel's an interesting little tunnel that connects New York City to, well, Long Island, New York City to, like, Newark, New Jersey. Ish. It's one of the ways to get in and out of New York City. Some people would say, but you can never leave New York City. Well, it's not true. Why would you want to leave New York City? Well, hey, you know what? It is really interesting. It's kind of cool. If you guys ever get a chance, I would say go have a visit and be safe. So I'm not really seeing snow, and we're like almost in February. So I guess the sim isn't putting snow in, and I'm guessing there's not a lot of snow. Now, there's all kinds of buildings, again, in New York City, and I don't know all of them. I do know the Empire State Building, and I do know the Chrysler Building. I mean, those I do know, and we passed the Statue of Liberty. So, and then there's everything else. That looks like the building from Ghostbusters, doesn't it? The original Ghostbusters from the 80s. So, nice place to visit. A lot of people say it's a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live here. And to anybody who I do know who lives out here, I'm not ripping on you or where you live. Let's not be nasty. As we slowly just kind of tour around. So, my point to some of this was, as we're kind of touring around New York City, you will not see a lot of helipads. As a matter of fact, I think that there's like next to none on the buildings. So, interestingly enough, I wondered why. Right? I mean, because let's go back in aviation history. So, in the 30s, there were Zeppelins. Now, we actually took off from an Air Force base that is right by the famous naval base where the Hindenburg blew up. The Hindenburg being the Zeppelin. If you've never heard of the Hindenburg, I strongly suggest that you Google it. It was a horrible disaster where all these people died. And it was because it was filled with hydrogen because they didn't have helium. So there were Zeppelins, and you'd say, again, his rambling and his rants, and he must be going somewhere with this. I am. So that was pre-helicopter. So some of the interesting, fun things that I've learned, over time.
Sink rate.
Yes, was sink rate.
Sink rate.
You have to pay attention to the aircraft as you're flying it. And I'm really not able to show you the Empire State Building well. And at this angle. So, there we go. So, they wanted to moor Zeppelins off the buildings. And they built these great decks, like on top of the Empire State Building, because they had thought that the future of air travel would be Zeppelins. And that you could moor Zeppelins to buildings, like the Empire State Building. And, it would be a way for people to travel, and you wouldn't have to have ground travel, You could have air travel, because, if you know anything about Zeppelins, which were the precursors to blimps, it's basically a big balloon. Well, blimps are big balloons. Zeppelins were kind of like big balloons, but not totally. So, just something fun, and I recommend you also try and find this documentary, because I'm kind of paraphrasing. You say, well, that looks like a helipad. And it does. Would that be one of the only helipads on a building in New York City? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a bunch of air conditioners. Not a whole lot of helipads to land at around here. So, and I really am just kind of slowly hovering around here. So, then they had the Hindenburg happen, and the Hindenburg apparently happened from static electricity. Ignited the hydrogen gas in the Hindenburg, which, again, caused a massive fire and a loss of life. And it was, at the time, it was one of the greatest tragedies to happen on the East Coast, especially in this area. And there was a bigger tragedy that happened later in life that didn't really involve a blimp. But it did involve aviation, if anyone remembers that. And we're not going to talk about that today. But, so, that was their original intention. Yes. I'm talking too much. So that was their original intention, was we were going to have Zeppelins that just floated around from city to city. And that's how a majority of people were going to travel. And you could just moor it. And, well, with the Hindenburg, they kind of realized that that's not a great idea. So you'd say, well, what does that have to do with the price of rice in China? Well, it has nothing to do with the price of rice in China. And if you find that to be some kind of that last statement to be some kind of a derogatory racist, I don't know. When I was raised, it was just a saying. And, what does anything have to do with the price of rice in China? So, for whatever reason, in New York, they decided that they didn't want to put helipads in all the buildings, and so they're on almost none of them, especially in the sim, because of the danger to the people below and in the buildings. Now, there are other cities like Tokyo, which has large skyscrapers, much like New York City. Chicago has large skyscrapers like New York City, and they have helipads everywhere in Tokyo. So, sometimes executives and other people like to travel in helicopters. So, anyhow, there you go. So, the Zeppelin thing never happened, and we should all kind of be thankful it didn't. Wouldn't say that it might not come back someday. But, so there's really nowhere to land this here. There are some helipads, and I can go search for them because I downloaded the mod. I don't remember where they are, because I don't normally fly out here. I think they were... Where were they? Oh, look, it's the Osprey, everybody. They were somewhere to our left. So they're like somewhere off to the left around the bridges and stuff. So here we go. Fun New York City time, and one of those bridges over there is the Brooklyn Bridge. I forget which one it is. And then there's other bridges. And there's the whole thing about, do you know how many people sync rate? It stutters. Yeah, don't ever let someone try and sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, especially when you get off a boat. So, there you have it. Beautiful New York City. It looks actually pretty good, for the most part. Not too apocalyptic, like some of the other cities in the sim. Little bit. Like I said, the closer you get to things. If we really bring these nacelles to, say, 90, 79, we're going the wrong way. 84, 85, 86, 88, 89, 90. One more click, we're at 90. So if I bring the nacelles to 90, and I level out the nose, this thing should kind of auto-hover. And I'm not in the cockpit, so I'm not going to be able to hear it say sync rate as I plummet to our death in New York City. But I can see that our airspeed's dropping. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. And I can probably see that our altitude's dropping too if I pay attention to that. Actually, it's increasing. So now we're kind of in a backward hover. So here we go. This is one of the cool things about the Osprey, is that it hovers. And again, like a helicopter, if I use my pedals, it will turn wherever I want it to go. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? I think so. But I think we need to watch where we're going, because there's a very large building. Among many others. So there you have it, New York City. I'm really not going to hunt for the helipads just because I don't want to. In case you're wondering. But I do want to get some forward momentum and get away from some of the buildings that we're at with the nacelles at 90 degrees. So you can have fun with the Osprey in so many different ways. And if you're next to New York City, then we're also next to Newark. And there, everybody, is the Empire State Building, or the Empire State Building. Statue of Liberty is the small thing right there, off on our left. I'm just trying to get clear of New York City. Like I said, the helipads are out there somewhere. If you download them from flightsim.to, you can pick them and it tells you how to start off from them. And if you're a big fan of helicopters, you probably want to do that. So let's kind of rotate our nacelles from 90 to something else. Let's actually use the right toggle switch to do that. Not in the opposite direction. I don't fly this thing enough. And you see that my airspeed's increasing. Let's pick the nose up. And you can hear the wind rushing by, so... See that? 94, 93. So just be careful how much you push this little thing, because it kind of doesn't like being pushed. And our nacelles are not at 90, they're at like 89. They're at 9 degrees. Yeah, obviously they're not at 90. They're at 9, and I'm doing 230 something knots, and I've noticed that in the sim that this plane with a question mark doesn't like it when you're doing 200 something knots and you're like, hey, I want to rotate the nacelles all the way down or all the way up. It kind of like kills you. And I don't know if that's what happens in real life. I mean, I know that there was an Osprey crash, and I think there was more than one, but so you just back off on the airspeed a little bit. Well, keeping an eye on your altitude, because you don't want to be too low when you're adjusting the nacelles and going too slow. 184 knots seems excessive, doesn't it? So now we're getting down to like Cessna speeds. So let's bring the nacelles to 0, and it's going to jerk just like that. And now we can floor it, SpongeBob. And there we go. And it's rocking a little bit because I had my feet on the rudder pedals. And so now we can kind of merrily fly back to where we departed from, which is the same place that we arrived at. Well, our arrival is our departure. We're just making a big loop. More or less. As we travel down through New Jersey. But I thought New York City was in New York. Well, it is, and if you were paying attention earlier, I said that New Jersey and New York touch each other. There are 2 states on the East Coast that border each other. New Jersey is south of New York. And there's actually lots of people who work in New York City, from what I'm told, and live in New Jersey because you want to get a house. Maybe you don't want to live in New York City. But I'll tell you what, and I have experienced this myself, and if you take offense to this living in New York City, then you know that I don't care right now about this. You don't want to drive through New York City. The traffic, especially in rush hour, is just, You could do that. You could sit in New York traffic while you install the sim at home. Maybe by the time you get home, it'll be installed. Alrighty. So here we go. So less skyscrapers, less dense population, more trees and stuff. Let's get the military aircraft back on a military base. I mean, granted, you could land a military plane at a civilian airport. But let's just get it back to a military base. And I'm flooring it, aren't I, SpongeBob? Because my knots are high. What are we at here? Yeah, let's back that down a little bit. Just a little bit. I think we were going too fast. So, this is kind of a fun alternative to Cessnas. It'll fly faster than a Cessna 172. It'll fly faster than the Beechcraft King Air. And it'll fly faster than the Bell 407. Just in case you're wondering. I don't know what we're coming up on. I wasn't intending to chase this guy. or lady, because planes don't have gender. But we're definitely following them. But what we should do is we should mind where we're going. We're going to overtake that little GA plane, by the way. And that's the fun part about multiplayer. See, we're not really bothering this person. And I hope they're not like, what's that huge thing behind me? Because the truth is, if they don't have the Osprey installed, they're probably seeing a giant bonanza. Not a giant bonanza, but I'm pretty sure the Osprey shows up as a bonanza. It's one of the default aircraft. And I don't know if I have what he's in. So it's hard to say. And that's why it's nice to have friends who flight sim with you. Because you might be like, hey, I didn't see you in your Tomcat. And then, like I said a million times over, you'd find out why. You know, probably because you don't have it. And that actually looks like a commercial airliner flying super low. So it's probably a plane that I don't have. Because it's pretty doubtful that somebody would be flying in a... Well, maybe it's something I do have. I don't know. So, let's come on down the New Jersey Turnpike here. Using it as a point of reference for where we're going. New Jersey Turnpike. Hopefully we don't miss where we're going. Because if I'm not careful, I'll fly right by our destination without a map. I thought there was a map. Let's see. Nope. Nope. Well, kind of. There we go. There is a map. Awesome. And how do I adjust the range on the map? Brightness. Brightness. Well, see, I really don't know everything about this aircraft, by far. That was the New Jersey Turnpike, by the way. There it is. Say goodbye, New Jersey Turnpike. So, we've covered a bunch of things that are on the East Coast. And again, we're trying not to get lost from where we're going. Oh, hey, you know what? I think all we have to do is just follow that line. Because I'm not sure, there wasn't really an autopilot on this before. So, and we're not using the autopilot, but I did plan a course before I flew, and I just use it as a point of reference, and it looks to me like that's going to save the day. It's all this modern, fangled technology. So we could have a place to land. And I think that's what I did, actually. Oh, there's the range. See, 20. I did, look at that. Okay, so I know where we're going now. So let's do that. 2.
McGuire Tower, Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa, minus Yankee 8 miles northeast, 1,400 feet.
8 miles.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa, minus Yankee McGuire Tower. Altimeter 28.82, wind calm, fly straight, in runway 24. Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa, minus Yankee, wind calm, clear to land runway 24.
That's awesome.
Clear to land runway 24, Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo.
Gears
Papa,
down.
minus Yankee.
Nacelles up. And carefully, every pony. And I'm sorry if every pony bothers some of you. But know that it's a term of endearment Because like I said, I love you guys, my viewers. And the gears should be down. And I'm just going to visually check. Yep, they are. And the nacelles are at 83 degrees. So, now I can land this thing like a helicopter. And they said runway 24 at 83 degrees. So now we're coming in more like a helicopter. Like we were over New York City. I'm just going to back off and mind my altitude as it jerks quite a bit. So, with this aircraft, you say, but you didn't vertically take off and land, Pony. When we get closer to the runway, I'll try. So you kind of want to be mindful of what you're doing and where you're going, and you want to just kind of get used to this aircraft as you fly along. Because knowing where you're going is important. Flying isn't kind of like driving. You're just like, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go to the store. I mean, you can do that. But in some things you don't want to do that. See, the nacelles are what looks like 90, but it's 83. And again, I'm minding my airspeed, and I am landing on runway 24 in the Osprey. Because that's where they said to land, isn't it? And my altitude is slowly dropping. Say, but I want to see you do it vertically. Fine. Because we didn't take off vertically. We took off, you know, like an airplane. So let's do that. As we get closer, I will make it more helicopter-y. 88, 90. Our nacelles are now at 90 degrees. So we can land like a helicopter. And never mind the...
Sync rate.
Yes, yes.
Sync rate.
Never mind the weird weather in the background. So the Osprey again, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk through this landing. It's not very forgiving. Nose up. Adjust that pitch. So I am trying to level out a little bit with my pitch, because that's going to help you with your landing. And I'm just kind of like playing with the throttle here. As I try and bring it in, and then I'm going to adjust my pitch to nose up a little bit. And then maybe cut back on the throttle, and then give it a little more throttle, and then nose it down. And so I'm playing with all kinds of things as I'm kind of coming in, and you can see that I'm hovering. And I just want to bring it down gently. Because this thing will fall like a brick if you're not careful. And to be honest with you, I think it gets kind of confusing sometimes too, at least for me, because I'm not in a helicopter. I'm in both. And when I fly it like an airplane, I'm like, well, dude, it's not a helicopter, it's an airplane. And gently, clunk, we're down. And now they are like, get off the runway. So you see, we landed on the runway. And now we want to taxi to parking, so we're going to bring our nacelles forward. And you don't want to bring them too much more than 70 degrees, and then you just want to gently give it some throttle and steer her in to the taxiway. And if you don't want to call it a her, don't call it a her.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee. Turn next taxiway.
I'm clearing the runway. And then we just kind of taxi to parking. Then I'm going to take my time. Just taxiing. Because there's the taxiway all the way down there. And I kind of want to give you guys the whole outside view of the Osprey too. So I'm not taxiing exactly down the middle, which I should be.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee. Turn next taxiway.
They like get off the runway. They're very serious. So if you taxi too fast, you will miss your taxiway, and then you'll have to wait for the next one. So you don't have to land on a runway in the Osprey. You can land anywhere that you could land a helicopter this size. Keep in mind, this is not the 407. It is not the R44. It's not a small little thing.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee. Turn next taxiway.
See? They just... Yes, ma'am. I heard you. I have to tell the other pilot to go around. Okay. So let's get her down to parking. Come on. Parking, parking, parking.
Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee contact ground on 121.8.
121.8 Derp Y Delta Echo Romeo Papa minus Yankee.
So here we are. We're on the ground. We got the military airplane on the military base. Welcome to McGuire Air Force Base. And we will go park it. Let's go park it. Let's go this way. Whoa, whoa, too fast, taxiing too fast. So, part of flying, and I'm not telling you how to sim, but it's kind of good to taxi to parking. It's kind of good to learn where the parking spots are, etc., etc., etc. But it's also good to practice your taxiing. I mean, I'm not sure what you want out of the sim, but you really can get a full experience out of it if you just practice at it. And I don't know, maybe you're like, well, I really want to fly. Well, this is a great entryway and a great way to get you into flying. Again, you know, some of the aircraft, or a chunk of them, are not really study level, so... You know, I don't think many flight schools count this flight sim as credit towards flying. But it'll help you. From what I've heard, some people have, like, wow, this really helped me. And there's other sims that will remain nameless, just because I don't like them. But apparently they have a better flight model, so, you know, poorer graphics, but a better flight model. As of today, anyways. So, alrighty. Where are we going? Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Because nobody told me where to park. Because when you contact ground, they'll tell you where to park. They'll be like, park that thing right over here. But we're just gonna park maybe over? How about over here? you know, like in real life, they would, at least a military base, they would direct you to parking. Or like in an airport, they would direct you to a gate. And they'd be like, you're going to gate G3 or whatever. So, but since we really are just in the sim, we can kind of park wherever we want. And look at that, we're right on the line. That's pretty good. Let's just slowly bring her in and set our parking brake. Look at that, right on the line. Oh, they put chocks in there for us. That's so cool. And we can rotate these nacelles just a little bit more. So they'll go down to 70. And so here we are in the Osprey at McGuire Air Force Base, or Joint Base McGuire Dix. Side door open, ramp door open. I don't know what door mode does. And there you have it. V-22 Osprey. Almost call it the off spray. Fun plane. Lots of fun, as you can see. Or is it a helicopter? What exactly is it? Lots of fun. So, as always, everybody, I wanted to say, if you like what you saw here today, feel free to like, share, and follow my videos, my channel. And I wanted to also say, thank you for watching Derp Your Hooves. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the skies.